Well, welcome all again. My name's Dan Skenzel, Executive Director of Notre Dame Studios. I do hope you all agree that what you saw last night, what you're seeing today, are just these phenomenal spaces that our University Architects Office, I think, is second to none in their ability to design and execute these spaces. But I know this panel up here, we're biased, and we think you may be too, that we think the crown jewel of the project is the Rex and Alice A. Martin Media Center. So the space we're all going to see today. And so the next half hour, we want to talk to you a little bit about the operational model behind that as we move towards more of technical discussions from there. So I'm honored to be up here with my boss, Ron Kraemer, who is our Vice President and Chief Information and Digital Officer, and colleagues, Mike Bonner, who's our Executive Director in Fighting Irish Media Live Events, and Brock Raum, who's our Supervising Producer in the Fighting Irish Media Live Events. So maybe we could just do a quick introduction from each of you and tell us about your background.
Sure. My name is Mike Bonner, as Dan mentioned. Good morning, everyone. I am the executive producer of live events for Fighting Irish Media. What that encompasses is I oversee all of our video board sports, mainly football. In case you hadn't heard, we got a football video board. And we also oversee all of our digital broadcast. So with ACC Network Extra on ESPN 3, which as of 2019 will be a linear channel. So there's a lot going on. I've been here at the university a little over a year now.
I'm Brock Raum. Before this, I'm the supervising producer of live events. Before this, I was with the Kansas City Chiefs for 4 years, and then University of Nebraska Husker Vision before that. Supervising producer, I direct our video board game day show while Mike produces. On top of that, I make a lot of the content for the video board show, do a lot of ESPN 3 live event broadcasts. I'm also kind of in charge of executing the technical build of the show. So I work with a lot of the equipment the vendors provide us, and I work really closely with a lot of our vendors.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Notre Dame. My name is Ron Kraemer. I'm the Chief Information and Digital Officer here. These guys have cool jobs. I'm an administrator. But we just feel greatly blessed to have the work ethic we have in collaboration that we see among all these groups. What you'll hear over and over again is it's not athletics, and we'll talk a little bit about how we look at that and how we pull that off every day.
So before we launch into some Q&A here, I thought maybe I'd fill in the gap that Jack teed up a little bit last night on how we got here to this time. So when Jack arrived early in his tenure as AD, he realized that athletic department and in truth the entire university was well behind in our capability of producing video content, our multimedia capability, and he wanted to solve that. He certainly saw the digital age that was certainly on its way then. This is back in 2008, 2009. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, as he alluded to, and was made available for 6 months in a project to work with Jack, and he basically said, find out what other schools are doing. Find out what pro teams are doing. Write me a report, and we'll go from there. And so I did that. In fact, visited Nebraska, visited Oklahoma, some other schools, stopped at the SVG. That was one of the first places I went, to the SVG conference, and met people. And interestingly, one of the things that I found as I was doing this was that there were two things that were partially causing our inability to produce content, and they were both really good things for us. One was our NBC contract, which when we announced that in 1991 and through the 90s was an absolute differentiator. It set us apart. We had a national broadcast. By 2010, not so much a differentiator from the standpoint of anybody and everybody was certainly going national with their content. And the second piece was one that really the folks at Nebraska and Oklahoma but turned me on to, which was by 2010, they'd had video boards for years, right? 70s, probably. They're maybe 80s, 90s. All right. So they were already at the point, though, of saying, we're not just producing in-venue content anymore. We're a television network. We're a station. We're producing content that can go anywhere, anytime, on any device. And here we were, stuck in a bit of a tradition mode where we didn't want a video board in any of our venues because there was concern about the atmosphere, about would it take away from the action on the court, and then also would we put sponsorship up on the screen. And I think Jack made that clear last night that it's just not something we're going to do. It's not part of our value system to put the sponsorship up on the screen. But those were two interesting things that led to this. And then as we went to get started, we went to Father John, who's our university president, and John Affleck Graves, our executive vice president, and made the pitch for the funding for the Fighting Irish Media Center, which is in our Joyce Center. It's 3,000 square feet, 2 control rooms, and a small green screen studio. And at that point, Father John in particular said, "This is great. We understand why you have to do this. We got to catch up, but it's not just for athletics. It is for the university." And so from the outset of that 3,000 square feet, that proof of concept as we saw it from way back then, even though athletics was running it, was that this is going to scale at some point someday to a university media group, a university media center. And so we're starting to realize that now. As we were going through the design phase, though, we quickly realized that athletics couldn't run this new facility. If it was going to be an enterprise facility, it just wasn't palatable to the academic side of the university, to the faith side of the university to have athletics running it. Athletics needed to have a part in it and use it, but not run it. And so Ron remembers we had many meetings of university stakeholders on starting to figure out, well, how are we going to operate this new media center? And from there, we conceptualized what we now call Notre Dame Studios. So Notre Dame Studios is our group of really the operational, the scheduling, the support layer for the Martin Media Center. So we have a production manager, and Lynn Langston. So she handles requests from across campus and works on the schedule for the center and doing some of the staffing for the necessary positions. We have an engineering team led by Scott Reinhardt, right, second to none, who are working on the camera setups and faxing out control rooms and ensuring all the equipment's working properly. And we have a streaming engineer group led by Tom Marantet and his team who take program feed and make sure we're distributing it to the appropriate places that we want it to go. So we are that operational layer that sits underneath, and then working within the center, we have representatives from Fighting Irish Media. So they have workstations, workspace within our media center. We have our university communications, and they have a presence in the center. We have our Office of Digital Learning, who puts together our MOOCs, these massive online open courses, working from the center. And then we are in the process of launching a new Catholic media group, which will go live in December around Advent. And they also have a presence as well. So Notre Dame Studios, helping to aggregate that live production and video asset management, all supporting these campus clients, the ones I've mentioned, and including one-off clients like our president's office, who put together a Notre Dame Forum event just a week ago that was focused on global affairs and politics. And so we, as Notre Dame Studios, supported that and ensured that it was produced properly and streamed to the right location. So with that, we are reporting up through IT lines. So Ron, I want to kind of pitch it to you and say, this is, I think folks would say that's a little bit unusual, but why does that work here for us?
Yeah, I think these things are becoming all more IT, right? The lines are being blurred between what we used to do with broadcast infrastructure and what we do with technology now. And so I think fundamentally from a service viewpoint, a couple things stand out to me. One is that IT is one of the groups that touches every single group on campus. So whether we're talking about the faith mission or the academic or athletics or whatever else we end up putting in here, we every day work with them already. And so a couple of years ago, Father John came to me, and so as you know, this project's been evolving for 5 years. But about 2 years ago was when he said, we're going to run this through IT. And Dan joined the group. And I think the important thing, though, is I don't look that IT owns this. We formed a steering committee about 2 years ago that Jack Swarbrick sits on, the vice president for mission and engagement, the vice president for university communications, 2 representatives of the provost's office, and athletics with Jack. And that steering committee together made the decisions about functionally how we would organize and operate the studio.
And given all of those constituents you've mentioned in this steering committee, so what do you see as the challenges that we've either faced already or are challenges yet to come in how we manage the Martin Media Center?
Yeah, so for me, the number one thing isn't really what we do, it's how we're perceived by these stakeholders of what we're doing. So the number one challenge is athletics has to see themselves in the facility and the facility meeting their needs. Academics needs to see themselves in the facility and meeting their needs. Mission and engagement need to see themselves. So through the design process, through everything we talked about, we are very conscious of what's on the walls and what percentage of office space would be occupied by each of these various groups. And so there were all these little intentional details that for 2 years we just focused on each one. And so when you go in the facility today, I want you to see it as all these things. And I hope as you go in, you'll see elements of these things existing there each moment.
Absolutely. And the fact that we may have a faculty member in the teaching studio recording a lecture in the morning, and we have athletics in the evening getting ready for a live show adds a lot of complexity to how we manage this. So since I have to fill out my goals, I need to ask you, what does success look like to you for us?
Yeah, so we run this as a cost recovery operation. So there is a financial bottom line to it that we have to achieve. But the real goal that I would feel best about is if a year from now the provost comes to me and said, you met our needs in academics, and the head of mission and engagement said, we did what we wanted to do with our faith mission, and athletics is successful in what they want to achieve, and university communications feel like they're successful. So we'll financially have to meet our bottom line, but it's really at the end of the day that these groups are saying, wow, you really did include me, and this isn't just in athletics facilities. Because coming in, as several people have mentioned already, everyone was thinking, okay, yeah, you're talking the talk that we're going to do all these things, but what's going to really happen? So the proof will be in that experience people have.
Absolutely. And kind of shifting specifically over to an athletics use case and to Mike and Brock here, one of the challenges I think we'll have from more of a university public relations standpoint is athletics will no doubt be the most prolific user and is the most prolific user of the Martin Media Center, which is completely appropriate based on the number of games and the fan base and whatnot. And how we manage that from an internal constituency standpoint, I think is something that we're gonna face here. But Mike, Brock, I just want to pitch it to you and tell us about how you see using the center and what the center means to you and your roles in athletics.
Sure, I'll start. The center is so important to us, and as clients or as the super user of ND Studios, it really has everything that we need to put on a great show. The challenges and the things that, as we look to the future here is as we take on, the ACC Network linear channel, and we have these concurrent events where, we're utilizing the 2 control rooms in the Martin Media Center and the 2 control rooms over at the Joyce Center. It's making sure that, we are taken care of, that, we are able to have the resources to put on a great show for all of those athletic events. And, having the support of, yourself, Scott's group, it is key for us. So, it is vital in our operation.
And Brock, maybe to build on that, you came from a university environment in Nebraska, went to a pro team where you got to focus on one team, one sport, and now you're back to university life, which opens Pandora's box to 26 varsity sports here. Maybe talk about a little bit of that and the challenges of that.
Yeah, sure. I've been very fortunate in my career. I've gotten to see a lot of control rooms, university and on the pro level. And I can say without a doubt, this is the best one I've ever had the chance to work in and be in. With that said, one of the challenges is you always want more, right? You have all this stuff, and it's like, oh, well, what if we did this? What if we had this? What if we had this? I was just talking to one of our producers, Tony Simeone, the other day, and he says, when are we going to turn on the high frame rate? You know, when are we going to turn on the high frame rate? The beauty of this facility is there was a forward-thinking mentality when this was built that those licenses are already in place. It's just getting there technically, but all of the infrastructure is in place to do that. So one thing we had at the Chiefs is we were just very locked in a baseband world of if we wanted to go 4K or if we wanted to go high frame rate, we had to run more baseband, and that's the problem. There's the scalability there includes a lot of cost and a lot of labor, expanding routers, whereas here, expanding to 4K, expanding to high frame rate, a lot of that was taken into account on the front end of this build. So I think those are the big differences for me is in these past worlds, we were very locked in this baseband world, but now in the IP world, we're not locked in anymore, and we have that ability to scale as we see fit in the future.
So we aptly scheduled this conference around our bye week, so we have no football game this Saturday, and we did that because, you know, we thought, well, FIM, you'll have plenty of time. It's a bye week. It's a great time to fit it in. So, Mike, tell us about this week. How's it been?
There is never a dull moment around here, and really, the bye week is only for football. You know, between soccer and volleyball, and now our hockey season has begun. There is really never a night that we don't have something going on. I mean, even tonight, you know, we finish up here and we have to produce our weekly show at Jack Swarbrick. So that has been, you know, I came from the professional world. I worked for the Yankees from 99 to 2013, and then the Denver Broncos from 2013 to 2016. And what you said before of one team, one sport, I mean, that is really such the stark difference that when you get into the university world where, you know, you work a football game and you're exhausted after that football game, and then the next day it's, oh, we have soccer today, you know. So really it never ends, you know. So you look forward to really the end of the school year, you know, and that's that time that you get to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, and it does never end, and we're very fortunate. We have a very small team, but very hardworking team. And Tony, Nathan, Kevin, Tamara. There's a lot of people on our team who work these weekly events, and you know, we'll all work a football game. Then the next day, maybe Nathan has to do soccer, and then the next day, Tony has to do volleyball. So we're very fortunate that not only do we have the tools to produce this, but we also have a great team that anybody can kind of plug and play into these roles. It's not exactly something I've had at my other positions. Everybody's very specialized, whereas here. And I know we're focusing on the technology, but the team is so important too, because if you have this technology and you don't have the people who can use it, you don't have the people who can plug and play or are too specialized in these certain roles, it makes it hard and it puts too much of a burden on single users. And I think that spans across not just athletics, but academics as well. And when using the space, we're very fortunate here that we have a lot of people who know how to use the tools that we've been given. And everybody's still learning. Nobody knows everything. We're very fortunate we have a lot of people that can span across those different sports and different control rooms.
And on Sunday morning, you get to do Basilica Mass, too.
Right, exactly, yeah.
No, but to Brock's point, the versatility of the people around here, I mean, it's tremendous. You have someone who will produce or direct a game and switch it, and, you know, next thing you know, the next night, he's calling the hockey game. You know, I mean, I even found it myself where, you know, I'll produce a game, and then, you know, last Friday night I ran the RF camera for hockey, and you know what? It's fun. You know, you get to kind of go back and do those things. You know, I worked in a union shop for a long time. You weren't allowed to do that. You know, so you know, being able to do these things and you know, really participate and learn some of the new technology we have. It's fun.
No, I could second that with knowing that Brock is our on-call engineer at times too. So it is a lot of flow to the work. So talk to us about the video board. So we saw a little bit of it last night. Talk about the philosophy and the challenges that you're facing as you as you plan those shows?
Yeah, it is definitely unique. Paco brought it up earlier, even as we prep, and when in a game week, we can't even run audio inside the stadium until 5 o'clock because there are classes happening. Even last night during the tour, we didn't. The tour started at 4:45 and it was silent in the bowl. 5 o'clock, okay, we could turn it up. It is unique in that we don't have sponsors. But we are telling the university story on that video board. Jack talked last night about our 5 pillars. We make sure that all of our content hits those 5 pillars. Because we're a Catholic institution, we have the ability to do things like take the team prayer, which we do live, before the team comes out, and our fans get to join in that, So there are things that we do here where, we tell the mass schedule that's happening for after the game or the next day. But then we run some great pump-up football videos, So it is truly a mix of athletic content, academic content. It's the university story. We've created a character, a mad scientist, with our sustainability videos. And, our audience and our students, they like that. They don't want to just be talked to with a graphic and a voiceover. We like to tell stories in what we do and present it in the right way. So, it's been a challenge, but we're enjoying it. And I think every week, really, game to game, we push that bar a little bit further. We do a little bit more as we're learning in this new environment. Paco talked about when did he get to do audio or work out the audio, and he said the Temple game. But really, he was joking, but really August was the time that we were able to get in here and start playing with things. So it's an ongoing process.
And Ron, from a university executive standpoint, maybe share some of the feedback that you've received or have been a part of as we've gone through 3 games and how the video board has been used.
Yeah, so I would tell you, in early August, I bet a lot of us didn't sleep very much, and thinking about the magnitude of what was about to happen. And really, from the first 2 events we had before the Temple game, we all started to feel a little comfortable. When the Temple game hit, I think we're like, oh my God, this really went really well, right? And so these guys did a phenomenal job. In IT and in the studio, you always get pressed to the end, but they're not going to change the date of that first football game. And the way these folks stepped up and got everything ready and operational, and we had a few hiccups, but I don't think the fans noticed at all. And so it went beautifully. And now it's going to just, I think, be incremental improvement every week. But what these guys accomplished during the summer of 2017 will go down in Notre Dame history, I think. So.
I'm still not sleeping, by the way.
Still not. No.
So you mentioned it a little bit last night in a question to Jack about the ACC network. So Mike, Brock, talk about that is coming. How are we, Fighting Irish Media, preparing for that, and what will that mean to us?
Anytime you launch a linear network, there's a lot that goes into it. We actually had a meeting with ESPN, what was it, about a month and a half ago now. And before they had seen the facilities, they came in and said, well, we're still going to bring in a truck. You guys have great facilities, but we're still going to bring in a truck because we need to do ESPN show if it's going to be on a linear network. They took a tour through the facility and they said, we're never bringing a truck in here. So on the technological side, I think we're there. Where we're not quite there and where we're getting there is on the facility side and some of the venues, camera positions, fiber connectivity. There's a lot of that I know this summer that has to go into it to get ready for that 2018, 2019, to make sure that ESPN has a slate of, when we do softball, these are the 5 camera positions we need to have, and we cannot not have these positions. So it's a lot of building on the facility side to get those camera positions ready to go. And then on our side, it's staffing. We've been doing a lot of ESPN3 shows, but when you're pulling on a linear network show, there's a lot more that goes into that. So we're gonna have to work out how that looks staffing wise, how that looks freelancer versus student ratio. We use tons of student workers. All of our ESPN3 broadcasts right now are all student workers besides the one full-time producer director who's on each show. So while we still want to use a lot of students on the ACC network show, ESPN isn't too excited about putting an entire student crew on a linear broadcast. So we need to decide what those positions look like and where that goes moving forward.
And really, when we think about the launch in 2019, we're ramping up now. We're looking at next year, being our soft launch, and as Brock mentioned, with the student workers that we have, there's that 4-year cycle. So you try to get them early, and really get the experience to know that we can use them for the next 3-4 years. And the experience that they're gaining is truly incredible. And it's really interesting that a lot of our student workers, they're not even in the film, television, theater program. They are, we had a girl doing graphics last year she's in law school now, so, they're smart kids, and, being able to, get them to have the experience, but also to be able to utilize that talent, we're looking at that as, all right, our launch is 2018.
And is it safe to say that we couldn't produce the volume of content we do without our student program?
Absolutely not. No, it would be impossible.
It's been I think another kind of a crown jewel of the Fighting Irish media is that integration that we have with our film, television, theater program, and the ability to work with students in particular. So
the other thing I wanted to give a shout out on is all of the private sector companies that worked with us. I mean, across the board, people think about Notre Dame doing this, but it was really the partnerships with all the folks that came in to help us both on the technical side and the design side that contributed so much. We would not have been able to accomplish this without them.
Absolutely true. So I think that's a good segue to any Q&A from the audience. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, that's great. I know Mike and I, both being from the AFC West before this, we're used to working with NBC, but you worked with a different crew every single week, right? So you're always kind of chasing your own tail on, like, who's the tech manager this week? How are we going to get feeds? Who am I talking to? What's great about our relationship with NBC is we have Rob Hyland and Pierre Musa as our producer-director every single week for every single home game. So we had a big call at the beginning of the year of what this looks like, how we're going to work together on a lot of this stuff. And then we talk to each other about every single week. So for the Georgia game, NBC obviously had a huge camera complement, probably 20 manned availables, right? And we took a lot of those for our replay machine. We take a lot of those for live. But they took maybe 3 or 4 of our cameras. Now, for the Miami of Ohio game, they only came in with a 5-camera available complement manned, 5-camera manned. So they took a lot more of our cameras. And they took one low end zone. They didn't even have a camera. They just took our camera. And they just said, hey, hold heroes all the way to the sideline. So it's been really good knowing that we can have that relationship and knowing that there's some accountability, that if Pierre says he's going to do something and he doesn't do it, I'm going to come back to him yelling at him the next week, or vice versa. If I do something I say I'm going to do and I don't do it, he's going to come back on me. So it's been really good. We're just expanding that week by week. I know the eventual goal, we're not quite there yet, is to just have double tally on all the cameras, so that way you know if you're live or not. But it's been extremely positive and extremely beneficial to both parties.
And we've been strategic about it. I mean, as Brock mentioned, we have a call with them before every home game, and we go through our splits. We go through assignments. They know when they can go to our cameras. We know when we can go to theirs. We even have headset communication with them with our Riedel system. So every now and then I'll hear the producer's voice in my ear, and it's great because they're able to integrate things within our show into theirs and vice versa. I mean, we had our last game against Miami of Ohio. They cued our band to do America the Beautiful and the national anthem, and then we did this really nice moment where we were remembering Ara Parsegian, and they've rolled content from their truck that we put into our board, and they took that shot. So because of that great relationship, we're truly able to help each other out.
other questions?
Going live in December with Catholic media, what does live mean? Internet?
It does. That's a social and digital network, if you will, that's aimed at young Catholic adults between 18 and 34. And what we're working on is really a service to the church, in that statistics show more and more young people are falling away from a life of faith across all faiths. And the Catholic faith is not immune to that. And so we want to do our part as a Catholic university to start producing content that let's keep the ones we got. Let's hang on to them and not let them get away with short form, social, digital, inspirational content that can help them navigate life, work through challenges, and ultimately keep the faith.
But that is truly global, right? It's not just about Notre Dame.
It is. It won't be branded Notre Dame. It's a service to the church. We don't want it to be seen as, oh, this is for Notre Dame graduates or Notre Dame fans. This is for young Catholic adults, no matter where you may have gone to school or not, to again, be inspired and keep the faith.
So, Mike, a quick question on the in-game production. Obviously, you have experience at the Yankees and the Broncos. How different is it? Are you able to draw things from those experiences here? I know there's no kiss cam, but do you do the let's make some noise and all those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, the big difference is they've never had a video board before, so there's a couple groups like our band and our PA announcer where they were the entertainment here, so it's making sure that really everyone is in sync and everyone's on the same page. I remember, the first game, the Temple game, the PA announcer just started speaking while we were right in the middle of a video, and I was like, hey, you can't do that anymore, We have content that we're running here. The band expects to play at certain times, but if I have 90 seconds of content for a 90-second window, I have to, maneuver through that. So it's getting everyone on the same page. And like you said, no, we don't have Kiss Cam, we don't have sponsors, but I mean, we do have university messaging that we're getting out there. And ideally, we want to, entertain our fans. We want to engage them. And we want to win football games. So, there's a big part of it is keeping the crowd into the game, showing the replays, giving, as Jack said, having that home field advantage. So that's our aim, is to make sure that, we have a home field advantage. The first game, we got a replay overturned. And all these people, the naysayers and the video board, they said, gosh, how do we live without this? So, I'm able to take those things, from all my, past stops, really. But there are unique things to hear, too.
So another thing is, obviously, I think we've all been at stadiums. I always recall the first time I went to University of Phoenix Stadium, there were two scoreboards. One was really small and pathetic, and the other one was really big. And you're like, well, the people on this side of the stadium have a really bad experience, and those people have a really good experience. Yankee Stadium, same thing. So you have a board on one side. So what do you see is, people will say, hey, on this side of the stadium, I can't see anything, the replays. So what are you going to do for me? How do you kind of combat that in the near term? And
visiting fans, they're the ones with their backs to the board. I don't know who's in this room, but, I look at this right now as a day one thing. Let's crawl before we can walk. But, boy, you like that video board? How would you think about two in the corners over here, So, we'll see how that goes.
I mean, that's the best thing that can happen, right? We want people to want to see the video board so much they're complaining that they can't see it. So if we get that and we get enough feedback on that, I mean, I think we talked about what defines success for Notre Dame Studios. What defines success for me personally, I think, is people saying, hey, I can't see that video board. I'm not getting the full experience. I want to see it on the other side. I think that's a very good measure of success.
But we can't block touchdown.
We're never blocking the Word of Life mural, no.
Yeah, so the other thing I would say about this is there are very few places in the stadium where the video board isn't apparent to you. So even if you're in most of the end zone there, because the board is actually back from the stadium a little bit, of course you're not looking right at it, but the view from right below if you want to turn around and watch a replay, it looks beautiful from the seats right in front of it.
excellent. that's it. One more.
Or do one more, and then we'll wrap.
You mentioned ESPN earlier. This said with VR technology and a lot of games now being available. I know Ohio streamed their game via VR. Also NASCAR. What does Notre Dame look like to stream that in the future as technology advances more and more?
That's a great question. You know, I can't speak specifically to Notre Dame's plans. I know we've dabbled in what does this all look like in VR, but I also know from a personal standpoint, there's a lot of people still trying to figure that out, and there are a lot of broadcasts in VR right now. But there's a few companies that do it right now, a few networks kind of doing their own thing. Nothing's really streamlined yet. So in my opinion, that would be kind of on, hey, ESPN, what are you doing on the rest of your platforms, and how do we integrate that with us, as opposed to us trying to find our own solution that maybe isn't in sync with what ESPN is doing. Dan can.
No, and I agree with that, and I think the broader answer is our broadcast partners, because we've also had this discussion with NBC. Last year we did a test with Next VR, and we brought them in and put together some highlights from our Stanford game. And we've been talking to them again this year about, all right, what's the next step? Let's baby step this thing. One game we brought in, we did a test. What do we want to do this year? How do we work with them and to do this right, as opposed to us trying to think that we can figure it out on our own? Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we're at...
Yeah, we'll take a
Break
break till 10:30. So quick 20-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 10:30. And then do you want to quickly preview the tours? You want to do it real quick? Do you know?
Yes, so we will be doing tours at the end of our sessions. We will launch the tours from the elevator bank over here, and we're going to use the color-coded dot system again to stage the tours. So as we get to that point, we'll make the announcements, and you'll have a tour guide, and we'll head down to the Martin Media Center and allow you to walk through there and see that.
Excellent. Thanks again, Dan.